Yeah, so thanks guys for making it today. This is definitely my first virtual investment, well, virtual panel at all. But I'm excited to do this, and hopefully it goes well. And yeah, so I guess first things first, as I think a lot of people on the call already know, I'm David Nations with the Nations Network, and we do a real estate team that does about 175, 180 transactions each year, and then also involved in real estate investing and been buying and flipping houses since 2000, off and on since 2004, and then also own some rental properties, and pretty passionate about investing and excited to be able to share some knowledge with everyone in the panel, in the meeting. I don't know, whatever we call this these days, the virtual seminar. And yeah, so I've got, if you guys wouldn't mind, go ahead and introduce yourselves, a little background on each of you, and then we'll jump into our questions. So Rory, if you want to go first.
Yeah, no, name's Roy Leach. Work with USA Mortgage. Been in the industry for about 8 years now, and learning all the time and experience, growing a team. And, within my team, we're doing at least 50 to upwards of 100 investment property financing situations a year. And, a lot of good information out there. And yeah, just look forward to meeting everybody and learning more about everybody else's aspect in this.
Perfect. Graham, how about you?
So yeah, Graham Stevens. I'm an attorney at Summers Compton Wells, LLC. I've been there 10 years. I've been an attorney out of law school for 13, 14 years. Yeah. My bulk of my practice, I'm a kind of a general transactional lawyer, but our firm is probably specializes in real estate. We do a lot of real estate deals, a lot of commercial and development work, but also we have a lot of clients who have portfolios of residential rental real estate. So that's probably what I spend the biggest portion of my day on, but I've got a pretty solid background in all kinds of transactional legal work. So
cool. And Keith?
My name is Keith Jacobs. I'm with Mangus Properties, and I've been with this company for coming up on 10 years now. I'll be 10 years in October. And we're a family-owned business, been around since 2006, and it is about 350 units that we manage right now. So we still try to give the personal feel to each of our clients. We mainly do single-family homes, some small multi-unit buildings as well. And right now we're trying to expand into a little bit more of the associations.
Okay, perfect. And Jim?
So my name is Jim Waymeyer. I am with the Nations Network at Keller Williams. I got in the business 2009, so totally different market when no one was getting in and everyone was getting out. I have a rental portfolio now, working on always building that. I was in construction before that. I've done I'll take on the flips and do those things too, and then probably somewhere around 30 to 35 flips have done. So just always looking to continue to build those.
And you also own rental properties too, right? I think you maybe said that. Cool.
I did. Mm-hmm.
Perfect. So I've got lists of questions we'll roll through, and for anyone that's listening in, if you guys have questions, you can put them in the chat as well, and we'll definitely try to get to as many of those as we can. So feel free to ask whatever comes up along the way, and I'll be looking at that. So if anyone does have questions, we'll make sure to cover them. So first one, really just kind of kick this thing off. If you've never invested in real estate before, what would they need to know? So what are tell someone, that's considering getting into real estate investing. So, Graham, we'll start with the really exciting stuff, the legal stuff. What, from that perspective, I never bought a single family home, a multifamily, anything really. Or maybe I own a home and I'm going to buy a new one, and maybe I want to keep it as a rental. What would your advice be for somebody that's brand new into this game?
Well, I mean, it's the basics, and probably anybody who's on this is at least, you know, is at least interested and has probably done some Google research or has actually, you know, taken the plunge and bought properties. But you know, you want to make sure that you've got your legal structure in place. You know, LLCs. It's everybody buys properties through LLCs these days. They're easy to set up, cheap to maintain. They do give you that liability protection between you know, the property itself and your personal assets. So you know, that's, you want to make sure that's done, and you can download these things. You can go to LegalZoom. You can go on the Secretary of State's website and register your LLC, pay a fee, and it's relatively straightforward and easy, or at least it seems that way, until you realize the nuances of it, and you go to, you know, take out your first loan or open a bank account, and you know, the bank tells you, no, this is all screwed up. Then you got to get the lawyer involved. The lawyer's got to fix everything you did wrong. And it ends up being more expensive to fix what was done wrong the first time. So, you know, it's, while nobody likes paying lawyers, I understand that, but we do add some value and can save you some headache in the long run. You know, and then beyond that, it's what kind of real estate investing do you want to do? Are you looking to buy something to lease? Is it a multifamily property? Is it a single family? Are you looking to buy and flip? You know, all of those transactions require documentation, whether it be a lease, whether it be a construction agreement, whether it's a sale contract. You know, those are all things that, you know, lawyers can help with. And there's a lot of forms out there, and I like using forms. Forms are good. They keep costs down. They're relatively simple, but they don't always have, they don't have, they're meant one size fits all. And what the lawyers can do is, you know, any nuanced issues that can come up, they know how to prepare the documents properly, to make sure that, you know, you're covered and you're not going to get yourself in trouble down the road. So, you know, those are important things. And the other thing is, your lawyer's been through hundreds of these, thousands of these. They've seen all kinds of things. They've seen every issue, maybe not every issue, but a lot of the issues that can come up. So they're a great resource of, yeah, you know, this, I've seen this before, and this is how we fix this problem, or here's how we deal with this problem. You know, and that can come up on buying real estate as well. You know, you got a title issue, or you got an easement, or you got something that you got to deal with. You know, 9 times out of 10, the lawyer's seen something like it or something close to it, and we know how to deal with it. So, you know, that's, I think probably the biggest piece of advice is, if you're thinking about getting into this, you know, you want to put your team together. Get your lawyer, get your accountant, get your real estate agent, get your lender, get your property managers, you know, get that team together, because, you know, everybody's kind of got their own niche, and they're going to add value in the long run to any deal you do. So
Perfect. Yeah, no, I agree. And that's kind of the goal today, and sharing our team and who we're working with, and definitely use you guys as a great resource. So Rory, from the lender side, especially right now with all the crazy things we have going on, what's it look like in the world of lending for investors? If I find a deal that's out there right now and want to go out and take it down, what does that look like in your world? And I know it's also a little different today than it maybe was if I would have asked you this in January.
Yeah, I mean, before this last few months, any kind of changes to the industry, we would know 3 to 6 months in advance, and everybody had time to prepare. And now they're changing things on a Tuesday, and, you know, like it's nothing. So things are changing, and basically liquidity, money's tightening up. So people just aren't wanting to lend as much, and they're really trying to lower risk wherever they can. But as far as, you know, getting started out, really it's the basics of buying any home. You want to make sure you're working on your credit score, because obviously, you know, the lower the risk, the better opportunities that are going to come. You're going to want to be saving, make sure that because there's not like, you know, there is opportunities where you can put as little as 3.5% down and buy an investment property through an FHA loan. I mean, but you still want to have some savings. You still want to focus in on that and some of the basics. You want to, again, get a plan, do research. And to me, you know, I think one of the most important things is getting a mentor. finding somebody that has done it, learn from their mistakes. I mean, we're all failing forward. We're all trying, and asking someone who's doing it or has done it. If you were starting day one, what's the one thing you'd focus on and one thing that you'd do differently? And I try to ask that when I'm doing loans for people who are buying their 10th or 12th or financing their 10th or 12th investment property, and just try to learn from their mistakes. But it's really the same basics that you would have buying a standard primary residence in our side of things, as far as like a conforming or conventional purchase.
Okay, perfect. Jim, what about you? What would that advice sound like for a first-time investor?
Okay, so when we're looking at investing, the first things I'm thinking about is, for me personally, is rentals. And then there's also flipping. So I was kind of looking at flipping. First thing I'm doing is establishing a budget and establishing an area. 100% know your area, but then also what Graham was talking about, surround yourselves with the right people. Another big thing is take all emotion out of it. That is huge, because Dave, you and I have bounced things off each other because we get excited about one thing or another. And then it's like, well, the other one goes, let's hold off a minute. Let's really, and then work your way back. And that's another thing is have another set of eyes on everything. As far as flipping, especially as your first one, how quickly can it be done? Carrying costs is going to kill you on some of that stuff. If you're not doing it efficiently, having your contractors written out, ready to go, and knowing what kind of finishes you have to put in your house, how much those things are going to cost you, that's the budget. But what are the other comparable houses that are selling for at a high price range? What kind of finishes do they have? Because you don't want to overdo a house and put useless money in there, but you don't want to underdo a house also. Always figure on best case scenario, or always figure best case and worst case scenario, and always go off the worst case. So that worst case on a flip will usually take you right into, well, if it doesn't sell, I can rent it. Looking at rent side, you definitely want to have the area. Find out start with a game plan as far as what do you want? What are you trying to achieve when you have these rentals? What's your monthly income? What do you want to have per month, per house, per door? It's a lot different on multifamily. Sometimes it's about $100 a door if you have a bigger unit. Minimum of $200 a door on a single family. I tend to go a little bit higher. I want a little bit more, especially it's going to cost me a little bit more on the front end, but I want to make sure that for me, I'm in an appreciating area. I'll take a $200 a month rent, knowing that if it's in an appreciating area.
When you say 200, you're sorry to interrupt, but just to clarify, when you're saying 200, you're talking about the cash flow you're making after everything.
Yep, that's after everything is paid.
All our cash flow for more appreciation.
Yep. Yeah. And this is for, that's 200 a month in an appreciating area. If it's not, I mean, everyone here knows this, there are some areas where the cash flow is amazing, but you're going to sell that house for maybe what you bought it for, maybe less, but not much more. So it's really risk adverse, how comfortable you are with it. That's part of the game plan that you're establishing up front. So that's really what I would be paying attention to.
Awesome. Great advice. And Keith, how about you? What's advice for a first timer?
Right, absolutely. So the thing that I always look at is, the first thing when I'm talking to somebody is, what their goals are, whether they're looking to, create some of the, like what Jim said, some of the cash flow right away, which multi-unit buildings do a little bit better job on that, or if they're looking to, be in it for the long term, so for those long-term equity for their properties. Then I want them to be prepared to navigate the expenses. Be prepared to go into it, see what they're gonna have to spend on this property to get it up to where they want it. So they're not having those expenses on a monthly basis long term. You spend a little bit more up front, but it's going to pay off in the long term. And then they have to know, like Jim was saying, they have to know what they're going to want each month, because that $1,200 in rent that they're getting, if it's a rental property, that gets eaten up pretty quickly. When you're talking about setting aside money for, potential vacancy, setting aside money for the monthly maintenance expenses that are going to come out of that property. So just being aware of what they want to see on a monthly basis and what they're comfortable with on a percentage. So that's really where I start with anybody who comes to me.
Awesome. Excellent. All right. So I'd like to kind of dive into our current circumstances, I guess. And, we sort of started talking about this before the meeting even started. But based on current circumstances and assuming people are, financially okay right now, would you guys be recommending investing in real estate now, and why? Are there still deals out there to be had? And whoever wants to jump on this, I don't know, Jim, Rory, whomever.
Yeah, I'll go. Absolutely. The longer you wait, you'll get 5 years down the road, 10 years down the road and say, man, I wish I would have done it sooner. Everyone says once they get 1 or 2, they say, man, I wish I would have started sooner. And if you keep waiting, there are deals to be had in every market. For example, when I got into the industry, there was tons of houses for sale and nobody had any money. Well, now there's not that much houses for sale, but money's pretty easy to get, or at least until, recently within the last 2 weeks. 3 weeks, but there isn't that many. I think as long as you going in, like establishing your area, and this is in my area, this is where I want it. The longer you hold off on things, the more you're going to regret it. It's like exactly what Rory. What was the quote that you put out? I saw the other day. 90% of millionaires have real estate in their portfolio.
Yeah, 90% of new millionaires in the last century have come from investing in real estate.
Yep.
So 90% is a good number.
Yeah, it's pretty solid.
And really today, interest rates are insanely low, and that's why it's just such a weird environment for us. They're doing everything they can to get rates lower, and rates are at literally, I've been in this 8 years, lowest I've ever seen. And it's, for some people, it's just an absolute unbelievable time. And other people, it's going to be more of a struggle because of, the risk adverse with the money. But I just priced out, just a $150,000 with 20% down. And we were looking at an interest rate of 3.875 on an investment property.
That's an investment?
As an investment property.
Wow.
Yeah, that's better than the rate I have on my house now. I'm refinancing now, but it's better than the rate, from 2 years ago on a primary residence. So, I listened to an investor talking about, really the cyclical side of things and the market that we're in today. And he did an analogy of using today's rates, because a lot of people are still saying, I'm looking for that deal. Similar to what Jim was saying with the inventory, there's still high demand with not a lot of inventory. You're not really going to get that killer deal, or, maybe you will. But more than likely, setting your expectations correctly, you're probably not going to see it. But he compared using today's rates versus like 2009, 2010, when you're getting a better deal. And he just used a rate at probably an appreciation or value we are seeing today versus at that time. And it was about a $15,000 to $20,000 difference, paying more and getting the lower rate. But I guess it's going to depend on if it's a short-term or long-term investment. But with interest rates where they're at, and they say cash is king or cash flow is king, that's going to help with that, and it's going to open up a lot more opportunity to people.
Rory, you said something. Can I ask you real quick? You were saying something. What is the difference, just in case, if you have a first-time person or listening on, the differences between your primary resident rates and your secondary home rates?
Yeah. So primary residence is typically about 1%, 0.75% better than what you would see on an investment property.
So the rates that you're hearing on the radio and things like that, don't put your money on those for an investment. Basically.
No, correct.
Talking more about primary things.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, and I wouldn't take what you're hearing on the radio as primary.
No, I never do.
Yeah, like when they do the micro machine talk at the end where it's like, brr, brr, brr. In that they're saying there's points involved, and there's, it's certain criteria to hit that advertised rate. They're trying to get the phone to ring. So, but yeah, you're generally going to see, and really, the more you put down what they consider lowering the risk, the better rate you're going to get. So going from 20 to 25 to 30% down, you're going to see better rates, better opportunities.
So, I think Roy mentioned, finding a killer deal. Jim, when you're looking at a deal, whether, and you can specify fix, flip, or if it's a rental, what are you looking at to determine, hey, I'm getting a deal? Because I'm still buying properties today. I know other people are still buying properties today, and I'm still seeing them as deals. What are you looking at to determine, hey, yeah, this is what I'm going to buy? And I think you just bought one recently, right? That you're working on rehabbing now. So maybe.
Yeah, I'm actually doing one right now. So I am, practicing what I'm preaching. So a lot of things is how much time, like kind of what I said earlier, is the holding costs. That's a factor, what the finishes are, but really diving in and knowing that market, or having someone on my side that knows that market, that says, this is really what you're going to make after all of the fees. Because if you talk to people that maybe don't deal with it a lot, you're forgetting a lot of things, as far as like it could be real estate fees, it could be holding costs, it could be things you don't know, or putting yourself in the right position when you buy a house, having the inspections done how many times. I mean, it's happened to me once when I didn't get a sewer lateral checked and it cost me $7,000. That definitely hurts the bottom line. Those are the bigger things. The structural issues, I'm probably not touching anything has any kind of structural issues, because of what I see on the backside when you do try and sell it. There just really is not too much of a warranty or anything that comes with it. So once the structural issues are fine, I can pretty much I can pretty much have someone do the other stuff, lining myself up with the right contractors.
Okay. So for you, if there's foundation problems, that's one of those ones that you would say, nope, no thanks, yep, I'm moving on. Okay.
Yeah, for me personally, I think other people are, if they're a little bit more risk averse, or if just for example, they have a good friend that does foundation work, and he's like, oh, that's not a big deal, and I can fix this for cheap. I'm still probably looking at finishing the basement to make sure it's all done. But those things scare potential buyers.
Sure. Just providing enough knowledge around it.
Yep.
Okay. Graham, from your perspective, how would you advise somebody, they're looking into getting into this, whether it's buying their first or whatever, doesn't necessarily have to be their first one, fix and flip or rental, single family versus multifamily, what's your perspective being an attorney on that?
Well, and I guess specifically at this stage with what's going on, attorneys are the most risk averse people you will meet, because we are the ones who no one ever calls us and says, hey, I got great news. It's always, oh man, you wouldn't believe what happened. How do I fix? So, we see the bad stuff. That's what we deal with on a daily basis. So we're always risk averse. And in this climate right now, we look at it as, okay, transactions are slowing down, but my bankruptcy department's going to get real busy real fast. And that may be, and it may be that we're being too conservative and too worried about it, and we'll come through this, and things open back up and everything will go crazy. I can tell you just anecdotally, one of my biggest clients owns apartment communities, and I think we're in 20 something states right now. $500 million in assets under management. They look at this, they're a cash rich buyer, they're sitting on a huge pile of money, run a bunch of real estate investment funds, and they look at this as an opportunity. They're looking for deals, they want to spend money. We're refinancing everything we can refinance. We just closed a Fannie Mae loan, $25 million Fannie Mae loan with a 2.85% rate, which is unbelievable. So, if you're sitting on cash and, this could be that time to jump in and go for it. I don't know, and you guys can probably speak to this better than I can. I don't know that I've seen necessarily any of this coronavirus necessarily start trickling down into pricing yet. I think it's coming, but I think it was so sudden and so somewhat unexpected, I guess, that nobody really priced this into the market. So I think there will be some of that, and maybe not. Maybe we come out of it and it was just a blip on the radar. But I think there will be. I think prices will probably start getting better. Yeah, I think the inventory will probably start increasing, and it's a good opportunity. So I can say I know my clients. The lawyers usually know what position their clients are in. Are they fundamentally strong, or are they living on a shoestring? And I can tell you, my ones that are fundamentally strong are seeing this as an opportunity. The ones that are on a shoestring, I'm worried about.
Got it. Great. Good advice. So, Keith, from your side, in current climate, as a property manager, and you said majority of what you guys have right now is single family. Are you seeing a direct effect as far as, people not being able to make rent payments, or is everything still moving along? And then also, are you able to get stuff leased up right now, or are things slower? I think you had said that it's busier, but that could be good or bad. I don't know. It depends on what you mean by busy.
Right. Yeah, we are seeing that there are people out there that are being affected. It's obvious. We're having to deal with those every day, and try to work things out and we deal with it on both sides, because on one side you have, the tenant who wants your compassion, and on the other side you have the owner that wants to know how soon they're going to get paid. So we're right in the middle, trying to navigate through that together. We're not seeing a huge amount, in our overall portfolios of people that are not being able to pay. We're seeing people that are structuring their payments much differently. They're stretching it out over the month, making smaller payments as they're able to, but not paying everything all at one time, at the beginning of the month like it was before. So we're seeing a little bit of difference there. Leasing properties, we're really not seeing anything slowing down. The activity is still there. People are still looking to move. From an investor, you have to know what you're looking for. Are you looking for somebody that's a market tenant, or are you open to somebody that gets, government assistance like Section 8? Because those programs are still running full force. They may not be accepting new people into their programs right now. There's still a lot of people that are in the program and they're still moving. So we're still seeing a lot of activity from that standpoint. So, if investors are open to those government housing programs, that, for certain areas, that does offer them a little bit more security, because right now those programs are still paying 100%, and they still come in right at the first week of the month, just like they're supposed to. So we're seeing that as not being a problem. From the standpoint of looking for the deals that are out there, you gotta do your homework and put in the time, because they're not just out there to pick and choose from. So that it takes a lot of extra time to research and find those. But we do like to be involved when we can, to get to the properties early on, to see some of those things like Jim might have been talking about, some of the problem areas, get some of our contractors in there to take a look at those and see what the cost estimates would be. Because sometimes, we just had one in Webster Groves where the price dropped dramatically on a house, and everybody was scared of some of the issues that were going on with it. But we were able to find a solution, and the investor took advantage of it, and it turned out to be a great rental for him. So they're definitely out there, but they're not easy right now. It's not like it was back in 2007 and 2008. There were so many. So it's a little bit different. We may be heading to, depending on what the government does, we may be heading back there where, those deals are going to start being more prevalent. But right now we're not seeing any issues or problems with putting people in the properties, and we're not seeing major issues with collections.
Right.
Some of that hopefully has to do with our due diligence that we did up front, but that's where we're seeing it right now.
So Keith, I know, I mean, I work with you because you manage our properties. I don't know much is beyond that on your end. So do you, I don't know if you or your company also owns rental properties, but I'm curious, being a property manager and overseeing a lot of properties at 350, from your perspective, how would you analyze the deal right now? What would you be looking at? Because I think, you have a different perspective, working directly with the tenant and the owners. You kind of have more insight than maybe somebody who's not in that seat, right? So what would you be looking at maybe as far as, hey, this is a great deal. I know I can get this rented. Are you looking at specifically areas or type of property? What would it be?
Right. Uh, I think it depends on, the goals of the investor. Our company, I don't personally own the rental properties, but our company does own rental properties. Most of them are up in the north area, Bell Fountain, up in those areas. But what we're seeing is, a lot of those were purchased back in 2007, 2008. We're not in the mode right now of purchasing more for our company right now. We're more focused on the management side of it that we're doing. So the ones that we purchased back in 2007, 2008, the appraisal values of those, they've been great rentals, but the appraisal value isn't any better now than it was back at that point in time. So, we're not seeing an increase in those values. So I would probably look in some different areas, and you have to look at what the areas are doing. If they're up and coming areas, if you can find those houses in some of the up and coming areas, that you can find those deals. I'm not talking about a deal where you're getting it for pennies on the dollar, but some sort of a wise investment. If an investor has between 130 and 150,000 dollars to put into a rental property, we can find the right area and get 14, 15, $1,600 a month coming back on that on a single family home. So those are kind of the parameters that I start to look at. If that's what they're looking for. Obviously, there's those deals you can go out there and find those deals that are 14, 15, 60,000. They're out there too. But those are the type of properties that may only get, somewhere between $700 and $800 a month coming back, and so it's a lot harder. And those are the type of tenants that when the economy does suffer, those tenants are the ones that tend to suffer more.
Okay. Yeah. And I think that goes back to the beginning to what you guys were saying and having that plan and knowing what you're looking for, right? I think you can get great cash flows on those properties for sure. But then, if your goal is to also generate appreciation, that may not be the right place for it. So if it's all about generating cash flow, then maybe the lower purchases are the places to go, right? Is what I hear you're saying there. And maybe you can get more of them because I can buy, two at $50,000 a piece as opposed to buying one for 130 or something like that, So I think certainly want to have a plan in place to make sure you know what you're doing or where, what your strategy is rather when you're going into this.
I've got a question, one more on that. Because you do so much, Keith, when was the last time you saw rents go down?
Oh, great question.
You know what? I don't think I've seen any rents.
So you've been in both markets. Yeah. So you've been in both markets and yet rents haven't gone down.
Yeah. I mean, even in the like for the housing authority, that we deal with, like with the government assistance, for a long time they were flatlined. They did not increase their rents. No, now they're going up a little bit. Very small increases at a time, but they are. But most of the properties and the rents, I mean, some are flatlined where they're not increasing, but I'm not, I haven't seen for years. I haven't seen any rents that are going down. They always seem to be going up right now.
And I mostly ask that because of what just say in an appreciating area, even if you're like on the smaller margins, you should kind of look at it that way too. It's if your reason for risk is, or your reason for not investing in is the risk and not sure if you'll be able to make a payment, things like that, or the margins are a little smaller. We've been in these markets now, and in the good markets, the rents do go higher. And in the bad markets, they stay the same or even increase because of the demand. So It's just something to think about.
Right.
So from a rent perspective, when you guys are looking at buying a house that you're going to buy and hold, how are you determining, A, I guess, figuring out what it's going to rent for, and then B, how are you figuring out, okay, it's going to rent for, let's say I've determined it's $1,500. What should I be buying that at that makes sense? I mean, how are you sort of backing into that? I think, Rory, I'd be curious to know from a lender perspective, is there something specific that you guys are looking for in knowing that, okay, other than just the mortgage is covered, or maybe that's it. But Jim, Keith, anyone that wants to chime in on this, I'm curious to know, like, what are you guys looking for to determine, yeah, I'm going to buy this and it's going to make a great rental because it does X.
As
Well,
far
I
as
would. Oh, good.
Yeah, I was waiting.
no, I mean, as far as our side, I guess what we want to see is that, if you're buying it that year and you haven't filed taxes on that property yet, we can use up to 75% of the total rent to offset the payment. So, you can't use it as income. We can only use 75%, but it can cover 100% of that payment. So in theory, if you buy a property and you get it leased immediately, we don't have to use like a net income on it. We're just going to use what that lease agreement is. But again, we can't use it as income, but we can offset the entire payment. So it makes it much, much easier to qualify for. After that, we're going to use the net income, annual income, to qualify. So if you're going to be writing a lot of things off and doing things along those lines, it becomes more of a challenge to use some of that income to qualify.
Okay.
So kind of what I'm looking at now, and this is just based on perspective of what I've gone through or what deals I've gotten or what I'm doing now. So let's just look at, 2015, I bought a property for $122,000 and it was renting at $1,295. And that is awesome. Like, it's really good. That's what when I was buying at the time, I was very, very happy with that opportunity you have right now. That house right now, I could sell it for 175, and it still rents at 1350. Well, that's probably not going to be paying market price for that. So that, again, it's going to go into finding those lower properties that just needs a little bit of work to get it established to get that rent, but it has to be something that's like $300 a month for me is what I'm comfortable with in an appreciating area.
And so for you, you're more inclined to buy something that it's going to need work, that you can maybe get it on the cheaper end because it needs work, to then be able to add some value to it to get that additional rent.
And that's because that's what the market's allowing. Because
Okay.
if nobody in their right mind is going to be like, well, I'm just going to take less money. And when I have the opportunity to take more, because I'm not going to pay what if someone puts it on the market, so I'm not paying what market price is for that. And with that comes with a little bit more work because some people don't want to do it.
Got it.
Now,
So
if they're in a different
one,
situation, go ahead.
Go ahead, Jim.
If they're in a different situation and they don't have, so the opportunity that I had like 2 months ago, I could close in 7 days. It's cash. Just said, okay, let's do it. And they took probably a little bit more money, a little less money because they had to. It was either that or lose it. So.
Jim, I had a quick question on, so like in a scenario, do you ever look at a property and see, you see what it's renting for now, and then you look at, some of the work you're going to do or invest into it? How do you project, what the rental income would be after some of the work you've done? Or do you ever, are there opportunities where you're like, okay, I could get this much more out of it? Or are you pretty much set at where it's at when you buy it?
No, I think what takes a lot into account there is you always want to be pushing the market. So look at how many rentals are around you in that area. It'll gradually tick up. If you have granite countertops and hardwood floors, things like that, or not hardwood, but solid surface flooring, like, your rents increase just by doing basic or nicer updates everyone else has got to keep up with you too. If you're only competing with 3 or 4 or 5 around you, but if you're in a neighborhood of like 20 or 20 to 5 and no one else is doing what you're doing, you're sinking money into it that you'll never see the return on the rents. Everything has to go up. Someone always has to be pushing the rents a little bit higher, and it's justifiable because the finishes are nicer. And I know people don't think that, but it does happen and it does work. That's all my houses. They're granite countertops, backsplashes, solid surface floors.
Well, I will share with you actually right on what you're talking about, Jim. So we own brother and I own a 2-family that we manage ourselves on that one, only because we've been messing around with it for a few years. And we bought it, rented it out right away, and just the current condition it was in. And this was back in 2017, and we were getting like 1,100 for one side and 1,200 for the other. It was originally a 4-family. Somebody converted it into a 2-family, and they were large 2-family units at that point, 1,700 square foot on each side. We decided we were going to gut them completely and renovate the whole thing. And so we did, and made both sides they were 3-bed, 3-bed, 2-baths, and we turned them into 3-bed, 3-baths, put in-unit laundry in them as well. Plus the laundry still downstairs, but completely redid this entire place. And we took the rent from $1,100 a month to $1,695 a month for each one of those units. So to your point, increasing the quality of the building can certainly help. I will 100% admit that was certainly, I didn't have anything to go off of other than that. There's a lot of you're seeing new apartments being built around town and people are charging a lot for brand new. And this was essentially brand new. So I was speculating that we were going to be able to get more, and it did work out that way. But I will say in general, of course, if you have a nicer product, you should be able to get more for rent than typical. One of the questions real quick too that just popped up was, what are you finding is important to renters when you're updating an investment property? Finishes, layout. Keith, I give this one to you as the property manager. If you're leasing out these properties, what would you say you see on that?
Yeah, I think that the feedback that we get when people are looking at our properties is typically they're looking at multiple properties, so they're seeing they want to take the best out of everything they've seen and try to see if you're going to do that. Especially a lot of times we are showing properties while work is being done. We try to get people, if we're in that situation when an investor buys a home, we're trying to get people in through there while the work is being done. So as it's ready to go, we already have a tenant lined up. So from that standpoint, sometimes they can even throw in their input about what they would like to see. Obviously, we can't do everything that somebody would ask us to do, but sometimes we can tailor it to what they want, maybe a paint color, things of that nature. I think, what I look at and what I get feedback from people the most is, they're looking for the kitchen to be a little bit more updated and nice. They want the flooring, to look great, whether it's the hardwood floors being updated and refinished and looking nicer, or whether if it's carpeting, if it looks new and fresh and clean, and bedroom sizes. That's a huge thing for us. Is we'll have a house that we think is a home run all the way, and then we realize that no one, the market's limited because maybe the bedrooms are a little bit too small for everybody. So that's something that we look at as well. Is we have to think about how they're going to feel when they look at what they're going to be moving into that house and how it's going to fit and how it's going to look. So I think that's as important to them as how it looks, is how it's going to make a fit for them.
Okay. Perfect.
Did that, yeah,
Another
you get a question answer?
Yeah, I think it covered that. I mean, I think it sounds like, obviously the finishes are certainly important. I mean, I guess, are you finding too, Keith, at this point, I mean, are people trying to negotiate rent still quite a bit? I know you said, also rents don't really go down. So is it sort of like, hey, this is what it is right now? Because the demand, I think, in the rental market has been higher than it has been in the past.
We definitely do. I mean, there are people that will ask if, maybe they can get a lower rent if they do a longer term lease. And we're always open to that. It really depends on, how the owner feels, because It's not our money we're dealing with, so we always have to remember that it's somebody else's money we're dealing with. So they're definitely open to looking at some longer term lease that could lower the rent. People do try to negotiate, but we try not to do that too often. You know, if we feel that the rent is right for the market and we're getting activity, you know, we don't negotiate too much on the rent. The only negotiation we would do is if we're getting that feedback from multiple sources, then we might feel that, hey, we're priced wrong and we need to take a second look at this.
Okay. So also, we touched a little bit on, I was referencing a two-family unit. I think we haven't really talked about this, but could be a great option in investing as well, right? Buying a two-family, living in one side, having a tenant in the other side and helping pay for your mortgage. I think you can do that also, Rory. You can tell me if I'm wrong, but you can do that with the four-family as well. It's still considered residential at 4 units, right? So could I buy a 4-unit, live in one, and rent out the other 3? But what are your guys' thoughts on doing something like that from an investment standpoint as well?
Yeah, you absolutely can, and that's really I find probably one of the best ways to start. And actually, FHA, VA, they allow you to do that with 3.5% down and as little as 0% down, up to 4 units FHA. Now, you can only have one FHA loan at a time, but I've had customers where they were going to put some money down, 20-25% on a 4 unit. And instead, we went FHA 3.5% down. They took their 17 or 16.5% that they were going to put down and actually put it into the property. Use that to build, create sweat equity, and then we did a refinance about 6 months to 8 months later, and into a conventional loan, and they established 30-40%. So they took that money and put it to use. So there's multiple scenarios that way, and there's really no time frame from which you need to be there for it to be considered a transitioning from a primary to investment, as long as you're going to occupy the property or your intentions are for a certain time frame or lengthy of time.
Cool, excellent. One of the other questions we got from the chat group there was, what are some of the resources you're using to find investment properties? Jim, I'll let you start with that one.
So there are tons. The market is really good for wholesalers right now. Have a very trusted one, and then you can have that, and then still have a real estate agent that's going to tell you what it really is going to sell for. You would actually probably be very surprised if you started talking to your friends and family, especially your family, that says, "Hey, I'm looking to." Older, how can I say it? So I had an opportunity to buy one of the best rental properties I have is one that I had the opportunity to buy was my grandma's. Giving them what they need, what they want for those things, those kind of working not even working it, but just making sure people know that you're interested in buying these houses. I guarantee you over a year's time, you can pick one up. It's just a matter of letting people know that you're interested in it. If they get hit up, I mean, they see these signs everywhere and they just will call them first if it's needs something that needs work, or they're just not they don't want to deal with it going on the market or anything. That's probably your biggest avenue right there.
Yeah. Keith, do you guys sell much? My first thought here is go to a property manager. You guys are leasing 350 doors, you said. So maybe I can find some deals over there. Would that be an accurate thought, or am I off?
I think it does happen because, over the course of time, for one reason or another, that investors that do have portfolios decide that they're ready to move on. It just wasn't right for them. Not everyone wants to be a landlord. Not everyone's in it for the long run. So, I do have investors that from time to time will decide that they're ready to move their portfolio, and it's a great time for me to pass those along to some other investors, before it goes on to the open market to see if they would like to work out a deal. So those are some things that happen quite often.
when it runs out of depreciation.
You know, I mean,
Tax
you know,
it.
sometimes sometimes it surprises me because some of the properties are really, they're doing well and they just say, hey, you know what, I think we're ready to sell. You know, it's just, we're ready to move on. We want to do something else. I mean, I have some investors that live in California and they have properties here and they do pretty well for them, but they're thinking, hey, you know what, maybe we want to try to, you know, invest in other areas and, you know, go out to California. So I was like, hey, yeah, it's totally, if you would like to do that, we'll look around, we'll see what we can find for you. So
Where would you find those opportunities? Like, you know, like where someone's maybe trying to sell their portfolio, get out, or, you know, is that just through like networking events or calling the Nations Network? What does that look like? How do they find that?
Call us. That's right. Thanks for that plug. I mean, I think it's referrals. It's word of mouth. It's networking. It's talking to people. I mean, there's tons of Facebook groups that are out there now that you can be a part of that are all about investing and finding deals. There's investment groups that you can get to be a part of. I do think property managers could be a good source. Absolutely. Obviously, I think realtors are a great source. They have a lot of connections from just doing deals around town, talking to other agents, working with other investors that they may know that are looking to sell off or buy deals, you know. So I think it's that constant word of mouth and letting people know that, hey, I'm out looking for this, you know. For a while, my brother and I had decided we wanted to explore, you know, a larger multifamily building and started messing around, looking and putting it out there and just kind of kept looking, and boom, one day one showed up and we bought it. So it's constantly putting it out there and looking and being patient. I think Jim said that in the very beginning, and, you know, keeping the emotions out of it and just making sure it's a good business deal. But I think it's the more you're out there talking to people and spreading the word, and, you know, you have your agent and have them out looking, and, you know, other people that, you know, I think that's how you're going to ultimately find those deals. You know, there's definitely
my
one
last one on Facebook.
from
Yeah.
Facebook.
Yeah.
And say there are, I think,
literally, you have about 2 hours before everyone sets in and goes after it. I went over there right away, and then that was it. It was done. So
yeah.
But it just because, like, I had done it enough, I wouldn't suggest, like, your first time person going over there and doing that right away. Even if you had the cash, I would take someone with you that has been through it before. I mean, I can assess a property without having the inspections and things like that, you know, relatively pretty quick because I've been through the situation. So
yeah, I mean, the first one I bought before I was an agent, I bought with an agent. So that way we had somebody helping us and directing us, because I had no clue what I was doing. So definitely helpful.
But I was going to say too, Dave, one other resource that, you know, I see it is probate filings. People pass away, family members, they want to unload the house. If you, and those are public record, so you can, I get calls as the attorney of record for for probate estates. Hey, well, we're interested in the piece of property. We'd like to buy it. You know, and I take it to the clients. I take it to whoever the estate administrator, the kids, you know, the whoever next of kin is. And you know, I've seen properties bought for cash that way. And another one is foreclosures. Foreclosures they aren't what they once were. At one point, there was tons and tons of properties being bought at foreclosure at great prices. There just aren't as many as there were. But I've represented lenders in foreclosures, and I've represented buyers in foreclosures, and there's a lot of risk, but there are some really, really good deals. And it used to be the quality of property was actually better. You could get quality properties in foreclosure. I don't think that's as much the case anymore, but those are two other ways. And those are both, you know, it's public record. If you know where to look, you can find those. And the people who do know where to look, that's what they do. They show up and will buy property at foreclosure auctions, buy 3 in a week.
So Graham, is that, you know, if I'm interested in that, is that something you might be able to help people with who's listening today?
Yes. Yeah, as a matter of fact, didn't I take you to a foreclosure sale one time? Didn't we do that?
When you started talking here, you talked about probate, but I thought you were going to talk about foreclosures. I'm like, yes, how did I not think about this? You and I actually went, and you did give me an education on how this works. I've yet to actually do one, but you definitely helped me out and literally held my hand, I think, walking in to showing me how this works.
Yeah, and it's if you've never been to one, they're interesting because it's an auction. It's on the courthouse steps, so to speak, in St. Louis County. It's in the new courthouse building. It's inside the atrium, but St. Louis City, you're down on it's in the court on the courthouse steps, and there's generally it's a lawyer is out there, and they read a bid sheet and they read off the entire legal description of the property, and people bid on it. And I've done them. I've cried them. I've represented credit unions for years and have done their foreclosure work for them. I kind of graduated out of having to actually go stand on the courthouse steps and do that, but our firm still does it. And there'll be times when no one will show up and bid, and there'll be other times when, people get interested, and you'll get calls as a lawyer, you'll get calls leading up to it, asking for opening bid prices, and you give them some information. Lawyers they'll give away some information, but they're not going to tell you, okay, here's the amount of the debt and here's what they're going to credit bid. And, you got to know you have this much, but if you go and you got to be a cash buyer, but you can get some very good deals. And generally Missouri law is favorable to foreclosures. You can get good, clean title. It's something I would never recommend doing without talking to someone who has done a lot of them. Again, a mentor or a lawyer who's been through it, because there are issues buying at foreclosure that you will not run into just buying something on the market, going through an agent or something that's been listed. So there's definitely a bunch of things to it, but it's a great way to get good deals if you know what you're doing. It's also a way to get real lemons if you don't. So
yeah, so if it's your first time, you definitely want to either have somebody that knows what the heck they're doing, or maybe not make that your first deal, just in case you end up with a lemon, I guess, right?
Yeah, exactly. And two, if you're ever interested, like I said, it's public. They look in the newspaper. There's you can also look on Kramer and Frank's, a big foreclosure firm here in town. They list them on their website, and you can see the times that the sales are going to be. Just go watch one. They're fun to watch. You get some interesting characters, so they can be entertaining to go spend a couple hours down at the courthouse and just see what it looks like. Don't take any money with it. Don't buy anything, but go watch.
Just learn.
Yeah.
So I mean, just talking about some deals, I know we've got one. Our team has a listing coming up on Reber that's in the Southwest Garden neighborhood, in between like the Hill and Tower Grove. That will be going on for, was it 39,000, Jim? 39.9, right? 2 bed, 1 bath. So that one would be a good fixer upper. I think you've seen it, correct?
Yep. Yes, it's going to need definitely want to walk through on that, to make sure that you're getting ready for, it's going to have a lot to it, but I think that it does have it's got a good return on it.
Cool. Yeah, so I mean, that's one, and I know we've got another one I learned about earlier today, a 2-family over in Crondelet Park that's also not listed, and one of the units is already rented out, and it's gonna be around 130. So maybe an opportunity for somebody that wanted to live in one and get rent from the other side of the unit, as well as I know, talking about looking for deals. I know we also have access to some other locations that have a lot of off-market deals. So happy to help people if they are looking for them out there. And then I guess, in conclusion, I've got just a last couple of questions for each of you guys. So what is one piece of advice you wish someone would have given you getting into real estate investing? And then what's your prediction for what's going to happen in the back half of this year? Whoever wants to go first.
I'll say the advice Jim gave of just getting in and doing it and not having the regret that I'm currently having of not doing it sooner. I think that with it being a long-term investment, even if values drop, even if with it being cyclical, you'll make your money back one way or the other and create cash flow. You'll create some certainty with your investment.
Perfect.
I think the biggest thing for me that I would say It's not anymore. I'm pretty diligent on this, but get your game plan and stick to it, and reinvest your investments. You know, you're gonna make $300 on a house. Don't go out and buy a boat, or something that would that would negate anything. That's how you're gonna get to where you want to go fastest.
Yeah. One thing I would say that I always think about is don't talk yourself into something, because it might look like it's going to be a good deal. Don't keep pushing and over exceeding what your budget was just because you really like the deal. If it's not there, it's better not to go for it. So I've seen that happen in the past where people will talk themselves into something and it just doesn't work out.
Stick to the numbers.
Graham?
Yeah, and protect yourself on the front end, not just economically, but legally. Talk to somebody, make sure that you are comfortable from an economic standpoint, but also, protect your personal assets. Don't get sued and end up losing your own home, and your life savings. So, I say don't get sued. If you get sued, you get sued, but make sure you have protections in place, that you're not going to end up, having to file bankruptcy or getting a judgment lien against your personal residence.
Okay. So, what's the prediction? What do you guys think the rest of this year is going to look like? It sounds like, things are going to start loosening up here potentially in May. We'll see what that looks like. But as that, I assume, happens throughout the summer, how do you think the real estate market shapes up going into the back half of this year? You think it's going to be a little slow burn before things start to pick up again? Do you think it's just going to get worse because real estate's sort of on that lag time? What are you guys thinking?
Personally, I think that we're going to have a good year for real estate. I think the Fed's already committed to keeping interest rates low. I think that it's going to be it's one of the main arteries of the U.S. economy, and I think that with the Fed stimulating the housing industry and stimulating the economy in the best way they can is through the housing sector. So I'm confident that we're going to continue to have a good year and see some good opportunities. Not 100% sure on the foreclosure side with the stimulus plan and the forbearance, and really the fact that the government said they're not going to allow foreclosures right now. So going to be interesting to see how the people who have taken advantage of the forbearance on the mortgages and how that comes to play once the 6-month window is up. So I'm interested in that, but I think that they're doing everything they can to keep rates low and to keep the housing side of things flowing.
Yeah.
So I think I think it'll be slow for a little bit still, even when they'll lift restrictions. I think it'll start to tick up a little bit when everybody starts to feel a little bit more comfortable about 2 months after when all the restrictions are left. And as long as, I don't think there's a way that because of the shortage of inventory that you would have such an influx of sellers coming onto the market that it would tip the scales on anything. And I think as long as the interest rates, like Roy was saying, the interest rates stay low and the demand is higher than the supply, I think it's going to be a strong market. You may not have as many sales, but the volume will be there. The prices will stay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think from a standpoint, I think there's going to be a lot of rental opportunities out there. I think that people who are maybe positioning themselves to be prepared to buy their home, they might be rethinking that, just with the uncertainty of what's coming. So I think we're going to see an uptick even more than we've seen in the people looking to rent properties.
Great. And Graham?
Yeah, I agree. I do agree with Jim. I think people are going to be a little bit gun shy coming out of this. I think there's a bit of just euphoria across the board, not just in real estate, but we saw a lot of M&A transactions going on, and money was relatively cheap. It's cheaper now, but it was cheap going into this. I think the stock market was inflated. So I think this is just in the way things have maybe come back to earth a little bit more, and I think people are going to want to see what's going to happen. Is it, is my 401k, does it look like it looks like right now, or does it look like it did 2 months ago, 3 months ago? And I think that's gonna dictate what people do. Whether it's let's pull in and regroup, or we've got extra money, let's go, let's put it somewhere. Let's put it into real estate, let's put it into the stock market, let's do something with it. So but I do think there's going to be some lag time here. People are going to be gun shy for a little while. But I still think by fourth quarter this year, I think things could be back to where they were.
Great. Well, I really appreciate you guys hopping on and doing this evening, and thank you for everyone that chimed in to listen tonight. We will do some more market updates on our Facebook page, the Nations Network Facebook page. So if you're not following us, go ahead and hop on and find us on Facebook and on Instagram. And I like to try to do right now, we're trying to do a weekly market update and just letting people know what's going on as things are evolving every day, really, with what we're experiencing with the pandemic. So, and then also in real estate and how things are moving along. So thanks again, Keith, Jim, Rory, Graham. I appreciate you guys very much. Thanks for your time tonight, and you guys have a great night.